So here we are with the man behind EGI himself, Mr. Empire Grappling, Mr. Jake Cross. A round of applause from the studio audience. Everyone's going crazy. How you doing, my friend? How you finding lockdown?
I'm good, Dan. Yourself? Yeah, I don't always feel we feel like we're on the tip of our tongue with a few things at the minute. Like it feels like we're so close to some sort of normality, but it not at the same time. I don't know how you feel about it.
I mean, this is where it gets really interesting because again, we're on this cusp of okay, we can almost train again, but we kind of can't, kind of can, and events as well. This is where I thought this was so refreshing to see EGI. So talk to me about that. So normally the format, you get the standard sort of, okay, you pay your entry in your bracket, you do this, that, and the other, but you've made this whole super fight event. You've got all mixed levels. Like, where did that idea stem from? Where's it just Fight Island itself? Go and talk to me.
I did Empire Grappling Invitational in February 2017, and that was sort of an idea from 2016 that I thought I always want to do something similar. And obviously around then, Polaris had only just started. EBI was big in America. There was things dotted around, but the UK really didn't have one bar Polaris. And I thought this needs to be something for the sort of the middle grapplers, the blue belts, the purple belts, etc. For a stage for them, maybe headlined by a brown or black belt, someone that's sort of on the cusp of being known or just wanted to compete at a decent level. So I did that in February 2017. And then from there, you had other events come in like Tough and Negi and then Grapple Fest and Pantheon now and stuff like that. And then I just thought, well, I'm doing my tournaments. I don't need to step on anyone's toes. I'm friends with most, if not all of these guys. Let's try and publicize these. Let's try and promote them. And then obviously because of the downtime now, I was just itching to do something, and this sort of was my avenue in and to keep my guys active. As you know, I've got a roster of UKFC MMA fighters, and then the Empire roster as well, which is still classed as my roster, even though they do whatever they want. They're not
Yeah.
signed to me. I just see them as my guys. They compete at my events. I want to try and keep at least a select few of them active. Even though it was at my own expense, I just thought that was my sort of thank you to the public and people to say, look, I'm putting some on for you guys. But then obviously people have seen since then, I've said, if you can help support and give donations, which a lot of people have, so I'm very grateful for that and humbled, then maybe we can do another one as soon as possible.
I mean, this is the beauty of the actual event itself. This is what really sort of resonated with me specifically as well. I found that perfect hybrid of it. It was professional. It looked the part, but also it had that kind of organic feel of, okay, this is by people who actually give a shit. Like, because again, you get the people who want to market, you get like I'm not going to name drop gyms and stuff, but you get the sort of people who know there's some money behind it, but people who do it because they want to do it, the sort of love of it. Now, with your background specifically, do you train yourself? Is it something you're just passionate about? What's your connection with martial arts and jiu-jitsu especially?
I don't train anymore, and that sounds it's a strange thing to be in this game and to be so passionate about it because I don't train anymore. There's multiple factors, and I've said it across different platforms. I'll gladly repeat myself, but basically, I started in 2009 training, and I trained full time for 4 or 5 years. Competed in every jiu-jitsu event that I could in the Northwest anyway, in sort of Midlands, and it wasn't even that big then. And then I competed MMA 7 times, and then sort of around 2012 2013, that's when I started promoting the small interclub events of Sub North and being part of different MMA organizations and sort of helping out there. And it just got to a point where I was too busy doing that, and I had a few comments where, oh, why are you training there, or I'm not going to do your event because you train out of that gym and that's a direct rival to me. And I just thought, you know what, I don't want to be part of the politics. I just want to see jiu-jitsu grow. And in the last 10 years I've been running events, I can literally say it's leaps and bounds. If people who were training even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, especially longer than that, the events now, the level is crazy.
I mean, this is something as well, which I think is quite refreshing as well. That you've got that outside sort of perspective on it all, because you've done it, but now you're that far removed from competing in itself. Like, say you take Dan Strauss, for example, his event's Kleos. So he has his own guys, his own gym, and then they compete on his local show. Now, almost every show he'll get some sort of grief from some white belt family saying, oh no, it's biased, it's one of these guys, this, that, and the other. But that you avoid that conversation almost, I feel. You've got a lot more, you can stay out of it, but also be involved in it in the same kind of time. Like, again, politics are they make the sport as fun as it is the best of times, but to try and manage it and keep things all friendly. So, I mean, even the way you were like describing your guys and stuff, like the regular guys who compete and work with you, but also you even say it with a sort of, okay, they are my guys, but it's not a case of they're signed to me, you know, they're never gonna leave me. But no, it's a case of you get it. You understand the sort of flexibility of it all.
Yeah, I'm all about building my own brand and making sure that I become as big as I can be. And I literally, even though I feel like my events are quite big right now, I still feel like I'm only just getting started, and I'm only just scratching the surface of the ideas that I've got and the amount of people I speak to. And I'm happy to help any promotion, any organization. Literally, as I'm filming this right now, I'm speaking to Lawrence Dutton at BJ 24/7 just about what's going on and ideas we've got, because we're both dying to get going again. And I'm not bothered about speaking to other people and helping other events, even from MMA to the super fight events to the tournaments. It's all about building jiu-jitsu, because the bigger we are, the more we'll get noticed. And maybe one day we're at the Olympics, and that's not my end goal per se, but if I can be part of that journey to be recognised by the government and maybe like Sport for England then get involved or anything like that, and we start getting the respects that maybe the Americans, or we always say the Americans or the Russians, that they get from school, they get paid to just compete and they're looked after. And if we can get our guys at like the MMA guys paid to go by the government to go to the IMAFs, the World Championships, or the World Championship on the Jiu-Jitsu stage, and part of building towards that, that's amazing for me.
I mean, this is a huge part of it as well, that kind of common goal of the community as a whole. Because you'll get the people who have the kind of intentions, but again, they try and keep it to, I need to get the credit kind of thing. And it gets very, gets interesting in that. I mean, prime example, on your last card, you had Liam Can. He's the guy who runs Pantheon as well. I mean, if
Yeah.
that doesn't say it all, the fact, you know, you guys kind of get it. You kind of, okay, all sort of northern sort of jiu-jitsu events, super fights, like full tournaments. And don't you have, was it Pantheon Trials at the last event? So was it?
Yeah, so was it November? Yeah, November.
Yeah.
So we had basically me and Liam kind of knew each other for many years, and every event he would come and compete. And then he was like, "You need to do one of these in Yorkshire." And I was too comfortable in Manchester because it's where I'm from. 99% of my team are from there, bar a couple of people that would maybe travel from Yorkshire. And then the venue where I was doing it at the Sugden was closed for refurbishment for about 7 months, and I couldn't find any other venue in time. And then I thought, do you know what? Screw it. Me and the missus drove to Leeds, looked at a couple of venues with Liam, and then just thought, screw it. And then within seeing the venue, 10 weeks later was the first Yorkshire Open. It was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I knew a lot of people around there, so they were happy to staff. A lot of my staff from the Northwest came up because it wasn't too much of a drive, and everyone sort of enjoyed it. And then that sort of made me branch out to Wales, as people have seen. And then I had other ideas for this year. Most likely will be next year now. But Liam is a sound guy. He's got a good head on himself. He's a great grappler. We've seen that on Saturday. Obviously, he didn't get the W, but it's a really tough fight, and he did step up a massive weight division, which I think he really needs to take into consideration when he's beating himself up about the loss. Because when you compete with a bigger guy, it changes your game a little bit. You're surviving a lot longer than when you're on top. But Liam and his team down there with Sam and Harry doing Pantheon are doing great things there, and they've hit a couple of road bumps with regards to date clashes and then COVID and stuff like that. But they've got the same desire that I've got to make jiu-jitsu better and to try. And they're not willing to, and they're not scared to try different things out. They did the sort of combat jiu-jitsu-esque thing and the main event of the first one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what the future is for them, and I'm happy to help them wherever they need it.
I mean, that's an interesting question in itself. So there's the whole idea of, okay, you're given this platform, but then also your preference and what you want to really see from it. So, like with most things, you want to try and go for the elite athletes, but realistically, the money's in the white belts, the money's in the kind of IBJJF kind of format. Like,
Yeah.
what was your ideal? I don't know. Say money's not an option next event. What sort of thing would you like to see from your own preference? Is it like a combat jits? Is it quintets? Is it EBIs? Is any certain rule sets? Anything particular you sort of resonate more towards?
The most fun event I've had, and this weekend was great, and I watched it back in literally from second to second yesterday. And I will be completely honest, jiu-jitsu can be boring to watch. I know it's really, really stupid to say because this is what I run as my business now, but it can be, and it really depends. It can be at the highest level. It's not much of a stalemate. You just sat there and going, for God's sake, do something. But on the premise of it all, it is a fun sport, and you just need to learn it and educate yourself a little bit more to enjoy it. If I could do I love doing the tournament, so I don't think I'd ever go away from them, but I do love the quintet, and I did that last year, and that was so much fun. And literally everyone that day, and even this weekend as well, everyone that day in the quintet was like so much fun, the camaraderie, it was a team thing. Rather than just supporting a teammate, it was supporting the whole team. You were all part of it, you were all struggling together, winning together, losing together. It was all, you all did it together, and I loved that day. And we didn't really have that many people around. It was sort of a last minute thing. But yeah, I think I would love to do more quintets. It's just like this weekend and the quintets, they're not really money orientated right now. You struggle to break even, and I'm willing to do one maybe once a year and make a bit of a loss or break even, because I can mix it between making a bit of money because I've got to pay my bills. But I want to give back as much as I can to the people that do help me. The people that do compete at Empire, they'll get first dibs on any sort of shows again, whether that's team series quintet, whether that's the invitational single matches, anything I do, they'll get first dibs because they're supporting me. And that doesn't mean that if you're from different countries or down south that you struggle to get to Empires right now, that you're not going to be included. It just means that other people will get the first dibs, if that makes sense.
But definitely, because again, it shows they're making that sort of commitment. And again, obviously, there's like restrictions for certain reasons, this, that, and the other. But you know, the people who are putting their foot, obviously, for what they're doing. I mean, side note on this, my first jiu-jitsu tournament was Empire, and I remember how that Sugden Sports Centre was giving me such bad PTSD. I remember going there, the bag of nerves. And from the first one, to like even the second and third one, the mats as well, because I remember it was, I think I had the one mat in the middle for like the brown and purple belts, and then the 3 mats for like everyone else. And but then the events after that, it was all around the perimeter, and you had like 9 mats or something at one point. And then again, it just kept on expanding, literally getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And sort of see the evolution of that in like EGR. I was thinking, oh, look at that, he's smashing it. And this is one of those things as well. The amount of guys you get there, and throughout longer training, you appreciate the people who are there. Like, I remember seeing like Lloyd Cooper, like a referee. I'm thinking, okay, I don't know who that man was. But then you go on Instagram and see all these sort of Polaris matches, this, that, and everything. Okay, fair enough. And then you look at the lineup for the quintet. You like, well, Freddie Rosgrove. You get like Ross Nichols, all these kind of guys. You think this is the, you don't quite appreciate what's going on until you've actually like, okay, you sort of take a minute to sort of let it all sink in. So, regards of like, I don't know, the EGI island itself, what did that take to get set up? Like regards of, I don't know, government guidelines and bits and bobs. Like how much, I don't know, what was the setup like for that initially?
So it was really just a lot of talk at the beginning between me and a couple of people on my team. See what we could do, and I just thought, do you know what, screw it, I'm just going to try this. I had a venue, or I had a couple of venues just in case anything changed. I had a date in mind, which obviously was this weekend, and that was the original date for Empire Yorkshire was supposed to be summer open. And I thought, do you know what, I'm just going to keep that date. I need something to go towards, even if I know I'm going to make nearly a couple of grand loss doing it. Judges, referees, paramedics, CMOs, commentators, running staff, T-shirts, trophies, whatever it had to be. I just wanted to make sure it was as good as possible. Share Fight, the videographer, which was amazing. He went above and beyond to make sure that this worked for me. He's in the same position where no events, and he wants to try and do as many as he can. He had Grapple Fest recently. He's done EGI. He's had a couple of MMA shows rumoured to come back, and he's working with them. So massive shout out to Adam and his team, because without people like him, you wouldn't be able to get the content out as good as quality as you would. And he's a great guy to work with, and he's very laid back. But yeah, I put as much safety as I could in place. And to be honest with you, I was probably overcautious compared to what other people had done. I had literally waivers for everyone that came in the building. I had track and trace details, so name, address, telephone numbers for if anything was ever traced back to us, to this event. Temperature checks, which I know people always question, like temperature checks aren't 100% positive, or the reading of them, but it gives us a general understanding that if someone's got a high temperature, something's not right within their body. And a lot of people were very within, a lot lower than that remit, nowhere near. So it gives us a general understanding. I provided masks for everyone, which I wasn't going to do at first. I was going to make people bring their own, but I got a handful of masks for everyone that came in the building. Obviously, everyone's an adult. I couldn't control everyone. I repeatedly told people to put the masks on, especially if you're speaking to people. If you're 2 meters distance, then it's, or if you're warming up or if you're competing, it's a bit different. I struggled running in and out of the cage, on the mic, putting it back on. It just became a bit of a chore, but I had to keep it doing. Obviously, wearing glasses myself, them steaming up like a fucker. It was really hard to deal with, but I stuck to the guidelines as much as I possibly could. I asked everyone else to do so. Everyone loved the day. Safety was paramount as much as I could, and did limit the numbers to where it was literally the coach or a couple of coaches to a team, if you have more than a couple of people, and then my staff. So yeah, from watching it back, there's a few things that I would probably adapt a little bit. Just little tweaky things like me with the mic coming in the cage. I maybe could have done it at the side of the cage for different, or just little camera angles that maybe would have been better for the presentation. But you live and you learn, and I don't think it was actually that bad.
I was going to say that kind of stuff's more for the people doing it who get really emotionally invested, like someone like yourself. He said, "This is my baby, this is my project." Like the littlest thing, like, oh my god, everyone noticed like me stepping with my wrong foot first, or something so like trivial. Thinking, okay, I think we're all right. And again, when go on.
One of my sponsors is one of my builds, and he's been around my house. I've known him for many years. AP Hall Build and Design, Design and Build.
Oh.
They were there yesterday, just finishing a project for me, and he helped me, donated, and did a few things for me building up to the event. And he was like, "Oh, laughing watching it. He's never watched anything like it before." And he was like, "One of the first fights, you were just breathing dead heavily." I was like, "Yeah, because I was running like 10 jobs. I was running up and down the stairs, getting things, and running to the cage." And I didn't realise until I watched it back, and it made me cringe. So next time, I just need to make sure I've got another person to do them extra jobs. I was just trying to multitask too much.
So get the miles in as well beforehand, get yourself in like fighting shape for an event. And when it comes to I don't know, being emotion invested, because again, this is your project, this is your baby, every event, you know, is yours. How do you find giving away that responsibility to other people and the sort of jobs themselves? Because again, it's your thing, you want to make sure it's absolutely perfect. How do you find letting go of responsibility to other people?
At the beginning, I found it very difficult. I still do now in a way. I wish, and I think most people that own businesses and run things wish they could split themselves, because they know the way they think, they know the way they're going to do it. And I think if you're going to do something right, do it yourself. Don't rely on other people, because they might not have the same thought process as you, and you want it done a particular way. And that's not because they've done it wrong. You tell them something, and sometimes it doesn't always compute. But I have learned the bigger I've got, I've had no choice but to rely on people. And I've had great runners throughout the year, like Kat Nardone from Factory. She had a baby and then stepped back, and then Chloe Duffer, she's sort of my right hand woman in the face of that. She literally makes sure the mat's running on time, and any problems, she sort of takes it off my shoulders, so I can sort of sit back and deal with the more urgent stuff on the day. Refs like Lee Herbert and Carl Casey, they're sort of my head refs now. They sort out my staff, so it's one less thing about that I think about, and they make sure that everything's sort of running clockwork. So if it's a staffing problem, they sort it. I don't even have to stress about it on the day. My missus, I have my parents and my brothers help me as well. So obviously close to home, you can rely on them, and you can be a bit more relaxed in the face of that. If they do something wrong, you just got to say, "Come on, guys, we can." Like, you can speak to them a bit more openly rather than on normal staffing. But I do rely on a lot of people, and a lot of people do rely on me to make sure I point in the right direction. But the team I've got around me is unreal, and I'm really, really humbled to have them.
I mean, again, it's so important investing in those people as well, because again, it's not a case of it's just someone you just sort of found online. Like, this is people you've worked with consistently, like Lee and Carl. Like, I remember seeing them every event. Like, they're sort of a staple of like Empire kind of thing. It's not like Empire without those sort of guys as well. And again, it's all part of the same kind of, I don't know, part of the team, part of the, I don't know, part of what Empire is as such. And it's good having that awareness of, you know, you should relinquish some of that kind of responsibility, but also being aware that you care. That's why you've got this kind of pressure in itself. And one thing I wanted to sort of shifting topics a little bit, when it came to the format in the cage, why in a cage opposed to just a mat space?
I don't know about you, and I like watching Submission Underground because it gives it a different dynamic with the cage.
Definitely.
And obviously because I have an MMA promotion in UK Fighting Championships with Steve Nightingale and Aaron Aber, and then I have Empire. It was sort of the best of both worlds. Obviously, you don't have the striking in the jiu-jitsu side, but I think it did give an element, and it was really interesting to see who used it, because you looked at like
Dakota and what's her name? Who is it? Dakota and Charlie.
Yeah, they used it. Liam McCracken used it. Ben Hills and Liam Can both used it within Essence. And most people don't know about Ben. Ben was an MMA fighter 10 years ago when he was younger. The first, and I've said this multiple times, the first MMA fight I ever cornered was against him. When he was like 17 or 18 or something like that anyway. So he knows how to use a cage. He's just a formidable grappler now. Liam Can is an amateur MMA fighter, and I'm sure he's undefeated, and I'm sure he's going for a belt at some point when this all lifts.
I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he knows what he's doing. And then when you got to the main event with Ellis and Jed, they wanted nothing to do with that cage. Jed stepped back, reset it in the center, so did Ellis as much as they could, because it was alien to them. And I think it was notified in the Jack Fletcher and Marlon Jones fight. Jack was trying to roll out the heel hook and he rolled into the cage. And you could see, I'm sure he's speaking after saying, like, I hit the cage and that was a problem. And that's the other element that people, otherwise you try and roll off the mat to try and reset or whatever. That's sort of the...
Like a rope equivalent kind of thing.
Yeah, so I feel like it did do another dynamic. Would that match finish if it was just on a mat differently between Jack and Marlon? Maybe, maybe not. You don't know. But I feel like everyone was given the same rule set. Everyone was given the same platform. And it's up to you what you did with it. And I think it really did highlight the level of the MMA fighters, especially Teddy, Liam, and Marlon. Dakota was great as well. But I think that showed the level of Charlie. But I feel like the Marlon, Liam, and Teddy, the amateur MMA fighters, which the amateur side doesn't really give them justice, because the most professional MMA fighters I've ever come across, and so is Dakota as well, and Charlie, and there was a few other people in there that have been on UKFC, but their leaps and bounds above everyone else, and that was amazing to see. And I had people I'd never even seen them before, which was like they're really highlighted in the jiu-jitsu community now, which I loved.
I mean, there's so much in that to really go into. And something you said there, I think is really poignant, the term amateur MMA. It comes across so sort of juvenile, very much like, oh yeah, that's cute. No, they're trying like professionals. They just don't fight with elbows and 4 ounces. Like, like you go into like almost any like professional level gym, show me an amateur and tell me like they're not training twice a day, you know, got the meal prep and this, that, and the other. They're pretty much professional, which is a different rule set. And
there's a term that we use. So you have professional amateurs, which is sort of Dakota, Charlie, Megan Morris, Liam, Teddy, Marlon. They're professional amateurs. They train like professionals. They might have other jobs anyway. Might teach, might do whatever, but they're professional amateurs. And then unfortunately, on the flip side, you have amateur professionals where they don't act like professionals. They don't train like professionals. And it doesn't help organizations. I would rather deal with these professional amateurs. And there is amateurs where they just step in the game, they're learning it, they might be young, and that's sort of where UKFC and other organizations sort of guide and mold them into what they should be. Social media is key right now, especially advertising yourself. Make sure you can sell tickets, and that's important to promoters, because they want people that can sell tickets so they can turn the events around to give them more platforms, and people don't really see that. And if anyone argues a case that the fighters shouldn't need to sell tickets, then they're part of the problem. And I'm willing to argue that with anyone, because you can't, like, people like me can't do these events if this money's not there. We have to either break even or make money. Otherwise, it's just stupid. No one's going to go out there every day and then, for argument's sake, go shopping and then give away the food. Obviously, people do that for charity and stuff, but I mean in the same sense that that's what they do all the time, and then they don't feed themselves. It's stupid. So I feel like people need to be professional amateurs or professional professionals, and that's in jiu-jitsu, MMA, any sort of walk of life, really.
I mean, again, when you've said that there, it's very poignant, because I feel there's almost this should be a step in between. I used to have semi-pro kind of rules, which is what we call amateur now.
Because again, my last fight was semi-pro.
I mean, this is it, because you get guys who are professional amateurs, and you take someone who is a beginner who's having their first fight. You wouldn't put them together. And that kind of distinction between, okay, you get people who want to just give it a go and get stuck in and get a feel for what MMA is. You need people who want to go professional, they want to take it seriously. I mean, they're classed at the same sort of level, but they're not. But, and again, the whole idea of gone.
So right now you have amateur C, which is no headshots at all. Amateur B, which is just headshots standing, not on the ground. And then you've got amateur A, which is basically professional, bar it's bigger gloves by a few ounces. There's no elbows, there's no knees to the head. and there's sort of, I'm sure there's no twist of the spine. That's sort of the difference. Other than that, it's the same. The problem is when you get to the level like Liam, Marlon, Corey Fry, the people that have been around the block that are on the cusp of going professional, once you do turn professional, it'll be a massive drop in competition. And that's just the way it is. Like, I've seen a lot of people drop a lot of levels and they just walk through the first few pro fights because of how good of an amateur they were. Connor Hitchens is one of them. Like, the guy was, 18-2 when he turned pro, and now he's like 7-0, 6-0. And then you got Mokiev making his debut in Sweden for Brave this weekend. He's like 22-0, won everything you can ever win. That guy, he most likely will be a drop in level compared to what he's fought recently. It doesn't mean that these pros aren't good. It just might be a bit of a quicker fight. But I feel like him signing for Brave and making his debut in Brave, so like Mokiev, it's the right thing for him. He can get the right fight to an organization that is backed by someone that backs him, that will support him along the way to get him to whatever heights he needs to.
My podcast with Mokiev is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and everything else. A little plug there, cheers for that. But again, it's interesting, again, regards to the sort of, I don't know, the progression as well. So say you take Jack Eglin and Nick Bagler. They fought their last amateur fights against each other in Cage Warriors Academy. Now they're both professional. They won't have a caliber of that fight for a while, of that kind of level, that kind of sort of matchmaking sort of, I don't know, quality. And like you're saying there, it's very interesting to see the level of the transition between professional amateurs to amateur professionals and that kind of another variance. And it becomes even more of a question as to how they can keep that level of, I don't know, that upward trajectory if the competition is not there in the same way. Because it's all well and good if you're afraid of your opponent, if you're intimidated by their skill set, you're going to outwork them. Whereas if you can't generate that sort of fear of, okay, he's not going to be as hard as the guys I've fought, it's so easy to get complacent at that point. So it's then trying to find that level of, I don't know, find your why and your reason to, I don't know, a hunger as such. And I think it's very case by case as such. Now, back to EGI, when it comes to the cage itself, would you consider doing that as a going forward in certain competitions? Because I think that wall aspect of grappling as a whole is so underappreciated, even in the MMA world. Like, it's not until you get to certain levels people start using it properly and start really applying it. So it'd be interesting to see how people can evolve with that anyway. Would you look to do it in future competitions?
The tournament side would be very, very difficult because the amount of people that we need and the amount of cages. I don't know if you remember probably about 8 to 10 years ago, there was Stu Thompson did Takedown, which is sort of maybe 2, 3, 4 cages, depending on the venue, which is MMA, which you could either pick beginners, which is amateur C, or intermediate, which is amateur B. And that's sort of where I got cut my teeth in the MMA world. I had 6 fights on there, and I enjoyed doing it. It was a lot different of a level than it is now. And there's a lot of people that fought on them shows, which either didn't do it anymore or went massive, like Jamie Lester, moved to Spain, professional MMA fighter. Simon Price, who I do my podcast with, he won the Takedown middleweight title. Jamie won the welterweight. So people have actually used it as a springboard and are very, very well known within the industry right now. Whereas in the cage aspect, like you asked, I would love to. It's a lot more money to try and get these cages. It's a lot more, a longer setup. Maybe one day we do something like what you said about the original Empires and the Grapple Nations, where there's a centre mat. Maybe do a centre cage and then you sort of have these super fights set up like we did at the weekend. Maybe that's something we do in the future. That is something I've thought about. It's just logistics. And that is logistics and the cost of it.
I mean, this is always an interesting conversation itself. I mean, advertising and the rest of it, because again, the cage got extra format, extra space, this, that, and the other. And again, it's where you find that funding from. And then it becomes the overheads of the cost itself, because majority of competitions are about 50 quid around about if you're lucky for entry. Unless you get to RPGF and you get absolutely robbed before you even walk in the door, but that's a different conversation. And it's this thing of, I don't know, how far away is it that it's not jiu-jitsu anymore? That again, if you start adding extra things, and how do people train for it properly? Because if you get people in like a, I don't know, standard sort of gym, not MMA gym, it's jiu-jitsu school, doing that sort of cage work and that wall work is so alien. It then becomes an extra level. Like, I mean, my prime question to a lot of like black belts is, how can you give someone a blue belt if their guard is, I don't know, a purple belt, but their takedowns and everything else is white belt? So even though they're exceeding in progressing such a one area so like specifically, so dynamically, whereas they're lacking the others, how can you then give them that kind of belt to give them that base level? And then if you add an extra element in that, it sort of adds to that as well. Because again, if you've got like good takedowns, but as soon as you get to the wall, you're just absolutely stuck. You're still the same like level competitor at that point.
It's that old adage, especially MMA. Obviously, most jiu-jitsu guys don't transition to MMA, or MMA guys do train jiu-jitsu, but you don't really see it the opposite way around. And that sort of adage where people say you are a black belt till you get punched in the face, and then again you're a brown belt, then you're purple, then you're blue, then you're a white. The more you get hit, and that's because of the other elements. I feel like there is different variants of belts. Like if you look at someone as good as
Like Tyrese or someone like that.
Jed, yeah, they're good. Jed, Tyrese, etc. are phenomenal at the leg game. The phenomenal in all areas, but they might be weak at like someone takes it back. They might be. It doesn't mean they're not at high level. It's just that they constantly practice. Like right now, the leg game is the new evolution. As soon as anyone put an ankle lock on me or a heel hook or whatever, a knee bar, I tap straight away. I want to walk. I'm not in this to not walk or have a broken arm or whatever. That's not me. But other people, like you've seen Ellis at the weekend, and the grimaces on his face early on was mental, and I would have tapped for days. But just show the level and the competition, and the fact that Ellis wanted to get it back. The levels right now are so different, and you see people playing the game. A lot of people like the EBI overtime format with either the armbar or taking the back, but a lot of people just sort of waste their time to get to that because they practice getting that armbar or that rear naked choke from that position. And I feel like people will always play the game the way it needs to be won. You'll get other people that will just go for broke, but you'll find that they get caught a lot. You'll see on the submission underground, Paige Van Zandt, Mr. Vanderford.
Austin, his name is, yeah.
Yeah, Austin. He plays them 5 minutes out because he's so strong from the back. Which it kind of like, if that's the way you get the W, do it. But I'm always looking for a format or a rule format where it's sort of you do it to win. So you've got no other option but to get that submission. Like for argument's sake, if you both don't submit each other in a time limit, you technically both lose rather than draw. It's
Like
classed as a draw
kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's the elimination process, and I feel like you would go for it more. And I feel like the no points aspect does work. It won't work in tournament factors. You need the points because if you have, I think we have at Empire 700 bouts in a day, 60-70% of them are going to go to decision by points. It's just the way it is. So you can't always go judge a decision because you're going to piss a lot of people off.
I mean, that's where it gets really interesting as well, is if you get some sort of definitive, okay, if there's no points, whoever's in top position wins. Something completely like out of nowhere, like decided on the day, kind of arbitrary. Kind of, okay, this is how I feel today. Like almost okay. So what's Jake got planned under his little beard today? Okay, we're going to pull out side control. If he's got side controls, 10 points. Okay, let's have fun with that. But again, it's all trying to. Again, this is what kind of kills sub only. Is that kind of. If I'd say butt scooting, a bit hypocritical for me, that's a different conversation. Again, that kind of you're playing the game, you're sort of stalling out till you get the back, which people argue we wouldn't have got in the first place. And these kind of things in itself, it becomes a bit of a, I don't know, again, back to the sort of political kind of side of things. Now, regards of what's next for Empire in itself, so say Boris decides to change his mind, COVID's gone away, events back up and running. What is your preference from there? Is it carrying as you were? Is it try and build something bigger? Is it more at the same time? What's your plan for next sort of step?
The plan this year was to expand into different areas. So I was looking at venues in Scotland. I was looking at venues in the Midlands, possibly down south. That's more of a recent conversation. And I was literally so close to announcing an Empire Island for August, which I've not really spoke much about people. And that's sort of still on the cards. And Ireland are a bit more ahead of us. But obviously, Republic of Ireland right now, Southern Ireland, they've said that you have to quarantine when you arrive 14 days. So that does throw a spanner in the works. And obviously with what we're saying about Spain, and that might open to other territories, and then local lockdowns with Leicester and Blackburn, and the same Rochdale and Oldham, which is very local to me. You've got to sort of play it by ear right now. I change my mind every hour, every day in relation to what I'm going to do. Like one day I wake up, right, screw it, I'm going on this date. We've got 2 or 3 months from now. We've got time to plan. I'll put all these things in place that if it doesn't go ahead, that it doesn't affect anyone or me or whatever. But it's kind of that thought, do I put all that hard work and then do I get all these people's hopes up to do that, and then it all falls through? I think that's the gauge at the minute, and I think that's the annoying point, the unknown. I really, really, really want to bring these events back, and for a selfish point of view, because I need to make money. I've become self-employed this year. I said that earlier this year as well in relation to the events. I make minimum anyway because I love doing this. I just didn't want to work 9 to 5 anymore. I was past that point. I wanted to sort of build this and spend more time into it. And I guess I got to spend more time building it in a way because I've had next to nothing to do other than that for the last sort of 5 to 6 months. But I'm ready to bring events back now. You've probably seen the post I put out 2 weeks ago saying, if we were to do something, what would you feel? And that went a bit mental with likes and comments and don't tease and don't play us. And I want to do these events so much. I'm like, Saturday made me realise, and I had other people say it as well, how much we miss being around each other because we've got all the same respect and training, and people love to do this, whether they do it for free, whether they're paying for it or getting paid for it, which obviously everyone would love to get paid for, and I would love to pay everyone for it, but it's just not physically possible right now. Maybe one day we do a full professional Empire tournament where everyone gets paid. Maybe we get a massive backer that makes possible, but I don't see it anytime soon. But I want to put these on because the community and jiu-jitsu needs them more than ever right now. Speaking to Lawrence at 24/7, he feels the same. There's events around that I feel like don't do jiu-jitsu justice, and I feel like you said, that do it just for the quick money. If they do make money, which it's very hard anyway, and I don't feel like they are in it for the long game, which I know myself and Lawrence is, and there's a couple of promotions that are as well. But I think it shows the way I've had to rebrand twice in the last sort of 8 to 10 years. Because of different factors, and it's because I didn't want to go away. I didn't want to just give up. There was things in place, and now I didn't think I would get bigger than Grapple Nation. And within 2 events, Empire was bigger than what Grapple Nation was combined ever. And I just keep on growing as much as I can, and that's because I'm my own boss now. I get to control every aspect because I know my ideas work, and I'm willing to do everything myself first. So I'm willing to put myself on the line. I'm willing to make sure, like I've ref for years. I would not want to ref now. I think it's a completely different thing, but I did it for years to make sure you understood. I competed for years to make sure you understood. That's why one of my taglines is by the competitor, for the competitor. And it is a cliche and a bit cringe, but it's the truth. I've been through it all. I've been to the worst events. I've been to the best events, and I take little bits of it, and I get feedback from a staff. I get feedback from competitors like yourself. I go, yeah, this worked, but this didn't. Would you change this? And even if I don't agree with them, I just sort of explain that, yeah, I understand, but I do this because of X, Y, and Z. Your idea because of A, B, C wouldn't work. For argument's sake, like you say, would you bring the cage in? Yes, I would love to, but there's a cost to it. And that's sort of how you need to explain these certain things. I would love to do every idea possible, but it's just not always possible.
I mean, that in itself, prime example, it's not just having, oh, it just wouldn't work. You've got an actual reason. Okay, this is a possibility. It would have this benefits, this, that, and the other, but there's cost involved, there's this, that, and the other. There's potential sort of turnover. You can get other sort of incremental sales, this, that, and the other. But again, it's all the overheads. It's everything else. You've got this kind of analytics as well. And again, having that level of personal connection, because again, you're emotionally invested in what you're doing anyway. You've tried and tested the certain areas of it all. And again, you care. I think that's where a lot of people sort of miss out on this. This is where the development kind of stagnates, is they lose interest in the product. And this is where it's so important. This is why I think you're getting the support you are and continue to grow, is because you're keeping that level of sort of authenticity. And now the most important question of the podcast, where can people find you on the old social media?
So for Empire, it's sort of like Empire Grappling or Empire Grappling events on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, which is YouTube's really important right now. Let's get these subscriptions up and get these events out there, because the bigger support we get, the more I can do of these. And then on Instagram as well, Empire Grappling, which I really fell in love with Instagram recently. I think it's a new niche of it. I even created an Empire Grappling TikTok yesterday just for something to do, because I was going through my normal TikTok and I just seen there's loads of jiu-jitsu stuff and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And obviously with the weekend, I've got a bit of content to put out. You know, you only get, a minute or something. So, and don't hate on TikTok, people, because right now when you just need a laugh or a smile or whatever, there is plenty on there just to pass half an hour of the day, because a lot of people are sort of still twiddling the thumbs. But yeah, that's about it. EmpireGrapplingEvents.com for the website. I'm Jake the Saint Cross on Instagram. But yeah, if anyone's got any ideas or want to approach me, I'm really approachable. I want to work with as many people as possible. You know, Dan, the amount of people that I bring on board as sponsors, I really just want to help as many businesses as possible. And yeah, thanks for your time.
You're more than welcome. What about your podcast? Where can people find that?
Oh yeah, Sam will hate me for not even saying that. The Life and Fight of a podcast. That's on same as yours, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Facebook. We just try and just chat a bit like you with people. Obviously, it is more MMA and Jiu-Jitsu orientated because of the circles that we're in. But we bring in different random guests. Like a few weeks ago, we had one of the Liverpool squad goalkeepers in, Andrew Lonergan, which was a fun one. Speaking to him about that, he's working with Jurgen Klopp and being around sort of like Marnie and all them on the teams, and obviously being part of the squad that's won the Premier League and what they've done the last 2 years. So we try and get different people on. So check that out. But yeah.
Cool. Links to those will be all in the description, and we